She hid her power in class. The war recording revealed everything. Battle lasted 6 hours. When the sun rose over Vera 7, the Keldrith had been defeated. Their ships were destroyed. Their soldiers were dead or captured. The academy stood damaged, but not broken, and everyone was talking about the human girl. Una had fought for the entire battle. She had moved from position to position, appearing wherever the fighting was worst. She had killed over 50 Keldrith soldiers by herself. She had saved dozens of students who would have died without her. By the end, even the aliens who had mocked humans were looking at her with different eyes. Not with respect, exactly. More like fear. The kind of fear you feel when you see a wild animal, something beautiful and dangerous that you do not understand. Now, in the morning light, the students gathered in the assembly hall. The room was damaged. Broken glass covered the floor. Bullet holes marked the walls. But it was the largest space that still had a working roof. Commander Taiho stood at the front. His uniform was torn and dirty. There was blood on his face from a cut on his forehead. But his eyes were sharp and serious. "Students," he said, "last night we survived an attack by the Keldrith Empire. Many of our friends did not survive. We will honor them properly when we have time to mourn. But first, we need to understand what happened. And more importantly, how we survived." He paused and looked directly at Una. She was standing at the back of the crowd, trying to hide again. But this time, everyone knew where she was. "Private Una," Commander Taiho said, "please come to the front." Una did not move. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking slightly. Jiho, who was standing beside her, touched her arm gently. "It is okay," he whispered. "Whatever happens, you are not alone." Una looked at him. Then she took a deep breath and walked to the front of the room. Every eye followed her. Valkyrie, Draxian, Torvin, human. They all watched the small woman who had killed 50 soldiers in one night. Commander Taiho gestured to a large screen behind him. "Last night, I made some calls to Earth military headquarters. I asked them about you, Private Una. Your official file says you have no military training, no combat experience, no special skills." He pressed a button. The screen lit up. "They told me that was a lie. They sent me your real file. And they sent me this." A video began playing on the screen. The video was dark and shaky. It showed a battlefield at night. Buildings were burning. Explosions filled the sky. Keldrith soldiers were everywhere, advancing in perfect formation. And in the middle of it all, there was a woman. She was covered in blood and dust. Her uniform was torn. Her face was hidden by shadow. But she was moving through the Keldrith soldiers like death itself. She did not fight like a soldier. She fought like a force of nature. Her movements were too fast, too smooth, too perfect. She killed with guns, with knives, with her bare hands. Nothing could stop her. Nothing could even slow her down. The video had a counter in the corner, showing how many enemies were killed. The number kept rising. 50, 100, 150, 200. The students watched in horrified silence. On screen, the woman killed a Keldrith captain with a single punch through his armor. She took his sword and cut through 6 soldiers in 3 seconds. She grabbed a heavy machine gun and fired it, with one hand while throwing grenades with the other. The counter reached 300. Then the video ended. The assembly hall was completely silent. No one moved. No one breathed. Commander Taiho spoke slowly. "This footage is from the human Keldrith border war 7 years ago. The location was Horizon Base. 3,000 Keldrith soldiers attacked a human colony of 200 civilians. There were only 50 soldiers defending it." He looked at Una. 49 of those soldiers died. 1 survived. She killed 312 enemies by herself. The battle lasted 42 minutes. He pointed at the screen. That soldier was you, Private Yuna, or should I say, Lieutenant Yuna, the ghost of Horizon Base, the most decorated soldier in human military history. The students began whispering. The whispers grew louder. Soon the whole room was filled with noise shock, disbelief, amazement. Gorak, the Valkyrie who had bullied Yuna for months, was standing near the front. His blue face was pale. His four hands were shaking. He had called this woman weak. He had called her pathetic. He had laughed at her. She could have killed him at any moment. She could have killed all of them. Why? Someone shouted from the crowd. Why did you hide? Why did you pretend to be weak? Yuna stood very still. Her face showed no emotion, but her eyes were sad deeply, painfully sad. Because I did not want to be that person anymore, she said quietly. The ghost of Horizon Base is not a hero. She is a killer. She is someone who was made to destroy. And after the war ended, I looked at my hands and saw only blood. She held up her hands. They were small and clean now, but everyone could imagine what they had done. I tried to go home, Yuna continued, but there was nothing left. My family was dead. My friends were dead. Everyone I loved was gone. And I was still alive. The monster survived when the good people did not. Her voice cracked slightly. So I ran away. I changed my name. I deleted my records. I came to this academy to disappear, to become nobody. I wanted to live a quiet life where I never had to kill again. Tears were forming in her eyes now. I did not want anyone to know what I am. I did not want to be feared. I just wanted to be normal. Just once in my life, I wanted to be normal. The room was silent again. But this time, the silence was different. It was not shock or fear. It was something softer. Something like understanding. Commander Taiho walked over to Yuna. He put his hand on her shoulder. Private Yuna, he said, you saved this academy last night. You saved hundreds of lives. Whatever you did in the past, whatever you were made to be, you chose to protect us when you could have hidden. That is not the action of a monster. That is the action of a hero. Yuna shook her head. I am not a hero. Heroes do not enjoy killing. Did you enjoy it last night? Yuna was quiet for a long moment. No, she whispered. I hated every second. But my body moved anyway. It always does. That is what scares me. Commander Taiho nodded slowly. Then you are not the monster you think you are. Monsters do not hate what they do. Monsters do not try to change. You came here to become someone different. That takes more courage than fighting any battle. He turned to face the students. Let me be clear to everyone here. Private Yuna is not our enemy. She is not something to fear. She is a human being who has suffered more than any of you can imagine. She deserves respect, not judgment. No one argued. After what they had seen last night, no one dared. Jiho stepped forward from the crowd. He walked up to Yuna and stood beside her. I do not know the ghost of Horizon Base, he said loudly, so everyone could hear. But I know Yuna, the woman who sits alone in the back of class. The woman who never complains when people insult her. The woman who stepped in front of bullets to save strangers she did not even like. He looked at her directly. That is the person I see. And that is the person I want to know. For the first time, Yuna smiled. It was small and fragile, like a flower pushing through concrete. But it was real. Maybe, she thought. She did not have to disappear after all. Maybe she could find a new way to live. Maybe she could finally stop running. She hid her power in class. The war recording revealed everything 1 week after the attack. The academy was slowly returning to normal. Workers repaired the damaged buildings. New security systems were installed. Classes began again. Though many seats were now empty. Yuna still sat at the back of classroom 7. But things were different now. No one mocked her. No one ignored her. When she entered a room, people moved aside. When she spoke, people listened. She was not sure if this was better or worse. Gorak, the Valkyrie who had bullied her for months, approached her one morning before class. His 4 hands were folded nervously in front of him. His eyes looked at the floor. "I came to apologize," he said. His voice was quiet, almost weak. "I said terrible things about you. About humans. I was wrong." Yuna looked at him calmly. "You were not completely wrong. Most humans are weaker than most Valkyrie. That is simply biology." Gorak shook his head. "No, I understand now. Strength is not just about muscles. Strength is not just about muscles. It is about will, about heart. I have 4 arms, but I could not do what you did. I would have frozen. I would have run." He finally met her eyes. "You are the strongest person I have ever met. I am sorry I did not see it before." Yuna was quiet for a moment. Then she nodded. Apology accepted. Gorak looked relieved. He started to walk away, then stopped. "Can I ask you something?" "Yes. How did you become like that? So strong, so fast? Was it training? Medicine? Something else?" Yuna's eyes became distant. "It was war," she said simply. "War changes people. Some break. Some run. And some become weapons. I did not choose to become what I am. I just survived when others did not." Gorak nodded slowly, though he did not fully understand. Then he returned to his seat. Later that day, Commander Taiho called Yuna to his office. She went without argument, though her heart was heavy. She knew what was coming. Commander Taiho was sitting behind his desk. He looked tired. The attack had aged him by 10 years, but his eyes were still sharp. "Sit down, Private," he said. Yuna sat in the chair across from him. The room was simple, just a desk, 2 chairs, and walls covered with maps and medals. "Earth Military Command has been in contact," Commander Taiho said. "They want you back. They say you deserted your position 7 years ago. Technically, you are a war criminal." Yuna did not react. She had expected this. However, Commander Taiho continued, "The Galactic Council has also been in contact. They have seen the footage from our attack. They know what you did here. They want to give you a medal." Yuna almost laughed. "A medal for killing? A medal for protecting. 87 students survived because of you. 42 of them are not human. The Council sees you as proof that humans can be valuable allies." "I am not a symbol," Yuna said. "I am just a person who made bad choices. You made hard choices. There is a difference." Commander Taiho leaned forward. "Listen to me, Yuna. I know what you are running from. I read your full file. Not just the battles you won, but what happened before. How the military took you when you were 15. How they trained you, enhanced you, turned you into a weapon. You did not choose that life. It was forced on you." Yuna's hands tightened on her knees. "Those memories hurt. They always hurt." "The Earth military wants their weapon back," Commander Taiho said. "But I have told them something different. I have told them that you are now a student at my academy, under my protection. And I have told them that if they want you, they will have to go through me, the Galactic Council, and every government that owes you a debt." Yuna stared at him. "Why would you do that? You barely know me." Commander Taiho smiled slightly. "Because I was a soldier too. I know what it means to be used and thrown away. You deserve better than that. Everyone does." He stood up and extended his hand. "Stay at the academy, Yuna. Finish your training. Not because Earth tells you to, but because you choose to. For the first time in your life, make a choice that is truly yours." Yuna looked at his hand. Then, slowly, she reached out and shook it. "Thank you, Commander. Do not thank me yet. The road ahead will be difficult. Many people will want to use you. Others will want to destroy you. You will have to be strong not as a weapon, but as a person." Yuna nodded. "I will try." That evening, Yuna walked through the academy gardens. The flowers were blooming, red and blue and gold under the light of the twin moons. The air was cool and peaceful. Jiho was sitting on a bench, waiting for her. He smiled when he saw her. "How did it go with the commander?" he asked. "Better than I expected." She sat down beside him. "He's letting me stay. Good. I would miss you if you left." Yuna looked at him with surprise. "Miss me? Why?" "I am not exactly friendly." Jiho laughed. "No, you are not. But you are honest. And you are kind, even if you do not show it. When Hannah was hurt during the attack, you could have left us behind. You did not. That was basic decency. Maybe, but basic decency is rare in this galaxy. I have learned that the hard way." They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The moons moved slowly across the sky. Somewhere in the distance, students were laughing and talking. "Can I ask you something?" Jiho said finally. "You can ask. I might not answer. What happens now?" "For you, I mean. What do you want?" Yuna thought about it. For years, she had only wanted to disappear, to stop being a weapon, to forget what she had done. But maybe that was not the answer. Maybe running was its own kind of prison. "I want to learn," she said slowly. "Not how to fight better. I already know that. I want to learn how to live. How to be a person instead of a weapon. How to have friends and a future and maybe, someday, peace." She looked at Jiho. "Is that stupid?" "No," he said. "That is the most human thing I have ever heard." They smiled at each other. It was a small moment, quiet and simple. But for Yuna, it meant everything. She was not the ghost of Horizon Base anymore. She was not a weapon or a monster or a war criminal. She was just Yuna, a woman with a terrible past and an uncertain future, sitting in a garden with a friend, watching the moons rise. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was more than enough. In the academy records, they would write about her as a hero. In military files, they would analyze her kills and study her tactics. Politicians would argue about what she represented. Historians would debate her legacy. But Yuna did not care about any of that. She cared about this moment. This bench. This friend. This peaceful night under alien stars. For the first time in years. She was not running. For the first time in years. She was home. And somewhere in the galaxy. The enemies of humanity told stories about the ghost. They warned their soldiers and trained their children. They built better weapons and stronger armor. But none of it would matter, because humanity did not send their best to that academy. They sent someone who was trying to retire, and that was far, far worse. She hid her power in class. The war recording revealed everything. Attack came without warning. It was the middle of the night. Most students were sleeping in their rooms. The academy was quiet and dark. The two moons of Vera 7 hung in the sky like pale eyes. Then the first explosion shook the building. Yuna woke instantly. Her eyes opened, and her body was already moving before she was fully awake. This was not the reaction of a normal person. This was the reaction of someone who had been woken by explosions. Many times before, she rolled off her bed and pressed her back against the wall. Her heart was calm. Her breathing was steady. Her mind was clear. Another explosion. Closer this time. The lights in her room flickered and died. Red emergency lights came on. Alarms began screaming. A voice spoke through the speakers. "Warning. The academy is under attack. All students report to safe zones immediately." This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill. Yuna moved to her window and looked outside. What she saw made her blood run cold. Ships. Dozens of black ships were flying above the academy. They were firing lasers at the buildings. On the ground, soldiers in dark armor were pouring out of landing craft. They moved fast and organized, like they had done this many times before. Yuna recognized the armor. She recognized the ships. She recognized the way they moved. The Keldrith. Her hands began to shake. Not from fear. From something else. Something darker. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. Not now, she whispered to herself. Control it. Control it. She opened her eyes. They were different now. Harder. Colder. The eyes of someone who had seen hell and walked through it. She grabbed her uniform jacket and ran out of her room. The hallway was chaos. Students were running in every direction, screaming and crying. Some were trying to find the safe zones. Others were looking for weapons. Most were just panicking. Yuna moved through the crowd like a shadow. She did not run. She walked with purpose, each step taking her exactly where she needed to go. She found Jiho near the stairs. He was helping Hannah, the other human woman who had hurt her leg. Blood was running down her ankle. Yuna! Jiho shouted when he saw her. Thank God. We need to get to the safe zone. Can you help me carry Hannah? Yuna looked at Hannah's leg. It is not broken. She can walk if we support her. They each took one of Hannah's arms and began moving. But the safe zone was on the other side of the academy. They had a long way to go. More explosions shook the building. Ceiling tiles fell around them. The walls cracked. Somewhere nearby, they heard gunfire and screaming. What is happening? Hannah cried. Who is attacking us? The Keldrith, Yuna said. Her voice was flat. Empty. Jiho looked at her. You know them? Yuna did not answer. They reached the main hall. It was a disaster. Bodies were everywhere, students and instructors who had been caught by surprise. Keldrith soldiers were moving through the hall, shooting anyone they found. Jiho pulled him behind a pillar. We cannot go through there, he whispered. There are too many of them. Yuna looked at the soldiers. There were 12 of them. They were heavily armed and wearing combat armor. For normal students, this was impossible to fight. But Yuna was not a normal student. She felt something rising inside her. Something she had buried for years. Something she had promised herself she would never use again. Stay here, she said. Jiho grabbed her arm. What are you doing? You will die out there. Yuna looked at him. Her eyes were different now. They were not empty anymore. They were burning. Burning with something that made Jiho's soul freeze. No, she said. I will not. She pulled her arm free and stepped out from behind the pillar. The Keldrith soldiers saw her immediately. One of them laughed. Look, a human child. Kill her. 3 soldiers raised their rifles. Yuna moved. What happened next was not human. It could not be human. She crossed the distance between them in less than a second. Her hand grabbed the first soldier's rifle and twisted it. The soldier's arm broke with a loud crack. She took the rifle and shot the second soldier in the face before he could react. The third soldier fired at her. She was not there anymore. She had moved, sliding under his shot like water under a bridge. She came up behind him and snapped his neck with one quick motion. 4 seconds. 3 soldiers dead. The other 9 soldiers opened fire. Bullets and lasers filled the air. Any normal person would have been torn apart. Yuna danced through the gunfire like she knew where every shot would go before it was fired. She moved without thinking, her body responding to danger automatically. This was not something she had learned. This was something she had become. She killed the 4th soldier with a punch to the throat. She killed the 5th by throwing a knife she had taken from the 3rd. She killed the sixth and seventh with 2 perfect shots from her stolen rifle. The remaining 5 soldiers began to retreat. For the first time, there was fear in their eyes. What is she? One of them screamed. What is this thing? Yuna did not answer. She did not need to. She killed them all. When the last soldier fell, the main hall was silent. 12 Keldris soldiers lay dead on the ground. The fight had lasted less than 30 seconds. Yuna stood in the middle of the bodies, breathing slowly. Her hands were covered in blood. Her eyes were still burning with that terrible fire. Behind the pillar, Jiho and Hana watched with horror and amazement. That is not possible, Hana whispered. No human can do that. Jiho said nothing. He could not speak. He could not think. He could only watch as the quiet girl from the back of the class transformed into something from a nightmare. Yuna turned to look at them. For a moment, they did not recognize her. This was not the shy, average student they knew. This was a weapon, a monster, a force of nature in human shape. Then, slowly, the fire in her eyes began to fade. Her shoulders dropped. Her hands stopped shaking. She became Yuna again, small, quiet, ordinary. We need to keep moving, she said. Her voice was tired. More soldiers will come. Jiho forced himself to move. He helped Hana stand and they followed Yuna through the hall. None of them spoke. What was there to say? They made it to the safe zone. Other students were already there, hiding behind emergency shields. Commander Taiho was organizing the defense, shouting orders and coordinating teams. When he saw Yuna, he stopped. He looked at the blood on her hands. He looked at her eyes, and he understood. You, he said quietly. I knew there was something about you. Yuna met his eyes. Commander, the Keldreth have at least 300 soldiers on the ground. More are coming. Your defensive positions are wrong. They will attack from the east, not the west. How do you know that? Because that is how they always attack. They did the same thing at Horizon Base, and at New Seoul, and at the lunar station. Commander Taiho's face went pale. You were there? At those battles? Yuna did not answer. She looked at the eastern windows. They're coming, she said. 15 minutes. Maybe less. You need to move your people now. For a moment, Commander Taiho just stared at her. Then he nodded and began shouting new orders. Yuna walked to a corner and sat down alone. She looked at her bloody hands. The hands of a killer. The hands she had tried so hard to clean. Jiho came and sat beside her. He did not speak. He did not ask questions. He just sat there, offering silent company. I am sorry, Yuna whispered. I did not want you to see that. Do not apologize, Jiho said. You saved our lives. Yuna shook her head slowly. You do not understand. That was not me saving lives. That was me being what I was made to be. A monster. Before Jiho could respond, the eastern wall exploded. The Keldreth had arrived, and the real battle was about to begin. She hid her power in class. The war recording revealed everything. 3 weeks passed at the Galactic Military Academy. The days were all the same. Wake up early. Attend classes. Do physical training. Eat. Sleep. Repeat. Yuna continued to be invisible. She sat in the back of every class. She scored average on every test. She never raised her hand. She never spoke unless someone asked her a question directly. The alien students continued to mock humans. Gorak and his Valkyrie friends were the worst. They pushed Jiho in the hallways. They knocked Hana's books from her hands. They called humans weak and useless, but they mostly ignored Yuna. She was so quiet, so unremarkable, that they often forgot she existed. That was exactly what Yuna wanted. One morning, Commander Taiho made an announcement. Today, we will have a surprise combat drill, he said. You will be divided into teams of 4. Each team will enter a simulation room and complete a mission. Your performance will affect your final grade. The students became excited. Combat drills were the most important tests at the academy. A good score could change your future. A bad score could end your career. The teams have been selected randomly by computer. Commander Taiho continued. He read the list of names. Yuna was placed on Team 7 with Jiho, a Draxian named Kuro, and a Torvan named Mira. Jiho walked over to Yuna. Looks like we are teammates, he said. Yuna nodded but said nothing. Kuro, the Draxian, was not happy. He had green scales and yellow eyes. His teeth were sharp like knives. Why do I have to work with 2 humans? He complained. We will lose for sure. Mira, the Torvan, was calmer. She was tall and thin, with large black eyes that seemed to see everything. Every team member has value, she said. We should work together. Karo hissed but did not argue. The 4 of them went to simulation. Room 3. It was a large metal room with walls that could change shape. The computer could create any environment inside forests, cities, deserts, spaceships. A voice spoke from the ceiling. Mission objective. Rescue a hostage from an enemy base. You have 30 minutes. Enemy soldiers will try to stop you. If all team members are eliminated, you fail. If the hostage dies, you fail. Begin. The walls changed. Suddenly, they were standing in a dark forest. Tall trees surrounded them. The ground was covered with dead leaves. In the distance, they could see a small building with lights. That must be the enemy base, Myra said. The hostage is probably inside. Karo pulled out his training rifle. I will go first. You humans stay behind me and try not to die. He ran toward the base without waiting. Myra followed him. Jiho looked at Yuna. Are you ready? Yuna's face was calm. Yes. They moved through the forest together. The trees were thick and the shadows were deep. Yuna walked quietly, her feet barely making sound on the leaves. Jiho noticed this. He was trying to be quiet too, but his footsteps were much louder than hers. Suddenly, Koro stopped. He raised his hand. Enemy soldiers ahead. 4 of them. Through the trees, they could see 4 robot soldiers guarding the path. They were holding rifles and scanning the area. I will attack from the front, Kuro said. Myra, you shoot from the left. Humans, stay here and do not get in the way. Before anyone could respond, Kuro charged forward. He was fast and strong. He shot 2 robots immediately, but the other 2 robots turned and fired back. One shot hit Kuro's arm. His suit flashed red. Damage received, the computer announced. Right arm disabled. Kuro growled in pain but kept fighting. Myra shot 1 more robot, but the last robot was aiming at Kuro's head. Yuna moved. She did not run. She walked quickly, smoothly, like water flowing down a hill. She grabbed Jiho's rifle from his hands and fired once. The shot hit the robot exactly in the center of its head. The robot fell. Everyone stared at her. Lucky shot, Yuna said. She handed the rifle back to Jiho. Karo looked at her with suspicious eyes. That was not luck. That was a perfect shot from 30 meters. The rifle has good aim assist, Yuna said. Her voice was flat. Anyone could have made that shot. Karo did not believe her. But there was no time to argue. They had to complete the mission. They continued toward the base. More robot soldiers appeared. Every time, Kuro and Mira did most of the fighting. Yuna stayed in the back, moving slowly, shooting rarely. But Jiho was watching her carefully. Every time she shot, she hit her target. Every single time. And every time an enemy got close to a teammate, Yuna was there to stop it. She made it look like accident. like she was just in the right place at the right time. But Jiho knew better. He had been in enough fights to recognize skill when he saw it. Yuna was not average. She was not below average. She was something else entirely. They reached the enemy base. It was a small building with 2 floors. 10 robot soldiers were inside, along with the hostage, a dummy made of plastic. "The entrance is guarded," Myra said. "We need a plan." Kuro flexed his injured arm. "I can still fight. I will go through the front door. You 3 find another way in." "That is a bad plan," Jiho said. "You are injured. If you go alone, you will be eliminated." "Then, what do you suggest, human?" Jiho thought for a moment. He looked at Yuna. She was standing quietly, looking at the building. Her eyes were moving, scanning every window, every door, every shadow. "Yuna," Jiho said, "what do you think?" Everyone looked at her. She seemed surprised that someone asked her opinion. "There is a window on the 2nd floor," she said slowly. "It is not guarded. If someone climbs up there, they can attack from above while the rest of the team attacks from below. The enemies will be confused." Myra nodded. "That is actually a good strategy. But who can climb that high?" "I can," Yuna said. Kuro laughed. "You? You can barely run without tripping. You want to climb a wall?" Yuna looked at him. Her eyes were empty. "I can do it." Something in her voice made Kuro stop laughing. He did not know why, but suddenly he felt cold, like he was standing next to something dangerous. "Fine," he said. "Do what you want. But if you fail, we all fail." Yuna walked toward the building. She found a pipe on the wall and began climbing. Her movements were slow and careful, too slow, too careful, like she was pretending to struggle. Jiho watched her climb. His heart was beating fast. He did not understand what was happening, but he felt like he was about to see something important. Yuna reached the window. She looked inside. Then she looked down at her team and nodded. "Now," she whispered. Kuro kicked down the front door. Mira ran in behind him. Jiho followed. Inside, chaos erupted. Robot soldiers fired their weapons. Kuro blocked shots with his one good arm. Mira shot back with perfect accuracy. And from above, Yuna dropped into the room. She landed softly, like a cat. Her body moved before her brain seemed to think. She grabbed a robot's rifle, twisted it out of its hands, and shot 3 other robots in less than 2 seconds. Then she stopped. She looked at the rifle in her hands like she did not know how it got there. Jiho stared at her with wide eyes. Karo stared at her with his mouth open. Myra stared at her with sudden understanding. "The hostage," Yuna said quietly. She pointed at the plastic dummy in the corner. "The mission is complete." The simulation ended. The walls became metal again. The robots disappeared. The voice from the ceiling spoke. "Mission successful. Time, 80 minutes. Team 7 receives highest marks." Commander Taiho's voice came through the speakers. "Excellent work, Team 7. Report to the debriefing room." They left the simulation room in silence. Karo kept looking at Yuna like she was a puzzle he could not solve. Mira said nothing, but her large eyes were thoughtful. Jiho walked beside Yuna. "That was not normal," he said quietly. "What you did in there. That was not the shooting of an average student." Yuna did not look at him. "I got lucky. 3 perfect shots in 2 seconds is not luck." Yuna stopped walking. She turned to face him. Her eyes were serious. "Jiho," she said, "some things are better left unknown. Trust me on this." "Why? What are you hiding?" Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she turned and walked away. Jiho stood there, watching her go. He had so many questions, but he knew she would not answer them. Not yet. That night, Jiho could not sleep. He kept thinking about Yuna, about her slow movements that were somehow always in the right place, about her perfect shots that she called luck, about her empty eyes that sometimes showed flashes of something dark. He opened his tablet and searched for information about her. Her file was simple. Too simple. Born on Earth, no military family, no special training, but that could not be true. Nobody shot like that without training. Nobody moved like that without experience. Who was Yuna really? And what was she running from? She hid her power in class. The war recording revealed everything. The Galactic Military Academy stood on a moon called Vera 7. It was a giant building made of white metal and glass. Students from 20 different planets came here to learn how to fight, how to lead, and how to protect their worlds. It was the best military school in the galaxy. Yuna walked through the main hall with her head down. She was 24 years old, average height, with black hair tied in a simple ponytail. She wore the gray uniform of a first-year student. Nothing about her looked special. Nothing about her stood out. And that was exactly what she wanted. She found her seat at the back of Classroom 7. The room was large, with curved seats rising up like a theater. At the front, a huge screen showed battle maps and weapon systems. Yuna sat in the last row, in the corner, where nobody would notice her. The other students were already talking loudly. Most of them were not human. The Valkyrie had blue skin and 4 arms. They were known for their strength. The Draxians had scales and sharp teeth. They were natural hunters. The Torvans were tall and thin, with large black eyes. They were the smartest species in the galaxy. And then there were the humans. Only 3 humans were in this class. Yuna, a young man named Jiho, and a woman named Hana. Humans were rare at the academy. Most alien species thought humans were weak. Too soft, too slow, too emotional. A Valkyrie student named Gorak turned around and looked at Yuna. He had 4 muscular arms and a face like a bull. He smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. "Look," he said to his friends. "The human is here again. Tell me, little human, why do you even try? Your species can barely lift a training rifle." His friends laughed. The sound was loud and cruel. Yuna did not look up. She opened her tablet and began reading the day's lesson. "Maybe she is deaf," another Valkyrie said. "Or maybe she is just stupid. Humans are not very smart, you know." More laughter. Jiho, the other human man, turned around. He was sitting a few rows ahead. He had short black hair and angry eyes. "Leave her alone," he said. "She has done nothing to you." Gorak stood up. He was almost 2 meters tall. "Are you going to fight me, little human? I would break you in half before you could blink." Jiho's hands became fists, but he did not move. He knew Gorak was right. The Valkyrie were 3 times stronger than humans. A fight would end badly. "That is what I thought," Gorak said. He sat back down, still laughing. Yuna continued reading. Her face showed nothing. No anger. No fear. No emotion at all. The instructor arrived. His name was Commander Taiho. He was also human, one of the few humans who had reached a high rank in the galactic military. He was 50 years old, with gray hair and a scar across his left cheek. He walked with the confidence of a man who had seen many battles. "Good morning, students," he said. His voice was calm but strong. "Today we will review basic combat formations. Open your tablets to Chapter 7. The class began. Commander Taiho explained how to position troops in battle. He talked about defense lines, attack patterns, and retreat strategies. Most students listened carefully. Some took notes. Yuna already knew all of this. She had learned it years ago, in a place far from here. But she pretended to study. She pretended to struggle with the concepts. When the commander asked questions, she gave simple answers. Basic answers. Answers that made her look average. After the lesson, Commander Taiho called the students for physical training. They went to the training hall, a massive room with robots, weapons, and obstacle courses. Today, we test your speed and reaction time, Commander Taiho announced. You will face training robots. They will attack, and you will defend. The computer will measure your performance. The students lined up. One by one, they entered the testing area. Gorak went first. The robot attacked with fast punches and kicks. Gorak blocked most of them and destroyed the robot in 40 seconds. His score was excellent. The Draxian students did even better. Their natural hunting instincts made them fast and deadly. They finished in 30 seconds or less. Then it was Yuna's turn. She walked into the testing area slowly. The robot activated. Its eyes glowed red. It moved toward her. Yuna raised her hands in a basic defensive position. The robot punched. She blocked it, but she moved clumsily. The robot kicked. She dodged, but barely. She looked slow. She looked weak. The robot kept attacking. Yuna kept defending. She never attacked back. She just blocked and dodged, always looking like she was struggling. Finally, after 2 minutes, the robot stopped. The test was over. Your score is 47 out of 100, the computer announced. Below average. The other students laughed. Gorak laughed the loudest. Pathetic, he said. Even for a human, that was pathetic. Yuna walked back to the line. Her face was still empty, still calm, but Jiho was watching her closely. Something was wrong. He had seen the test. He had seen every move she made. And he had noticed something strange. Every time the robot attacked, Yuna moved just enough to avoid getting hit. Not more, not less. Exactly enough. Her movements looked clumsy, but they were perfectly timed. Too perfectly. Jiho knew what real struggle looked like. He struggled every day in this academy. But Yuna's struggle looked different. It looked fake. He shook his head. No, that was crazy. She was just another weak human, like him. She had to be. But he could not stop thinking about it. After training, the students went to eat dinner. The dining hall was crowded and loud. Aliens sat in groups, talking about their scores and their futures. Yuna sat alone at a small table in the corner. She ate rice and vegetables slowly. Looking at nothing. Jiho took his food and walked toward her. He sat down across from her. Can I sit here? Yes. Yuna looked up. You already did. Jiho smiled a little. I wanted to say thank you. For not reacting to Gorak, it would have made things worse. I do not care about Gorak, Yuna said. Most people would care. He insults you every day. Yuna took another bite of rice. Words are just sounds. They only hurt if you let them. Jiho studied her face. Why are you here? At this academy, I mean. You do not seem like you want to be a soldier. Yuna's eyes became distant for a moment. Just a moment. Then she looked at him again. I wanted a quiet life, she said. I thought this would be a good place to disappear. Disappear from what? Yuna did not answer. She finished her food, stood up, and walked away. Jiho watched her go. She moved through the crowded room like a ghost. Nobody looked at her. Nobody noticed her. And Jiho realized that was exactly what she wanted. That night, in her small room, Yuna sat on her bed and looked out the window. The stars were bright against the black sky. Somewhere out there, far away, was Earth, her home. The place she had left behind. She closed her eyes and remembered. Things she did not want to remember. Fire, blood, screaming, the sound of weapons, the smell of death. She opened her eyes and took a deep breath. Never again, she whispered to herself. Never again. She lay down and tried to sleep. But sleep did not come easily. It never did. Somewhere in the academy, Commander Taiho sat in his office, looking at student files on his computer. He stopped at Yuna's file. Her test scores were all average or below. Her background information was simple. Born on Earth, no military family, no special training, but something about her bothered him. He had been a soldier for 30 years. He had learned to trust his instincts, and his instincts told him that this quiet girl was hiding something.